Hey everybody, it's Charlie from DM Moto, and if you're newer to the channel here, it's been growing nicely. We just crested 5,000 subscribers and we've been around here for about a year. But before that, the motorcycle videos were part of the main Daily Motor channel, and I've kind of gotten more and more into motorcycle reviews from the car reviews, so it kind of made sense that I started with Honda motorcycles and BMW motorcycles because of the Honda cars and BMW cars. And then throw Kawasaki in there because they're a market leader and they're located real close to me. But this is the first, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the first non-Japanese, German, or technically, if you consider Can-Am, Canadian manufacturer that we've had here on the channel. This is a Moto Guzzi. It's owned by the Piaggio brand, and this model right here is the Stelvio. I'm telling you all of that even though you'd already know it by clicking on the video. But I was really curious about reviewing this bike for a number of reasons. Main one being, when I ride motorcycles, I like to have some degree of character and soul and pizzazz to the ride because I review cars mostly, which means I'm typically reviewing things like this, our Chevy Equinox EV. The automotive world is essentially moving toward appliances, and yes, I still get to do fun things. I do trucks and sports cars and everything like that, but even those are becoming less soulful and more utilitarian. Motorcycles still keep a degree of soul to them, but admittedly, a lot of the Japanese and German bikes are very good, very well executed, but the inline twins and even the boxer twins and everything, they're kind of missing the pizzazz and the heart and the character that I love about motorcycling. That is why I'm excited to get on this bike here, because despite it being the crossover of motorcycles, it is an ADV style bike. We've got 19-inch front, 17-inch rear tires. We are kind of lifted up here in this upright seating position. It still has an Italian-built V-twin. Now, my last personal motorcycle was a Suzuki V-Strom 650. I liked that V-twin engine in that bike. I liked having a little bit of grunt and a little bit of character and just a little bit of soul to it. And this bike promises some of that character as well. Bigger motor in this one, though. We're dealing with about a 1050-ish cc V-twin here, 90-degree V-twin. We have a shaft drive, so if you're putting big miles on your bike, you don't have to worry about chain maintenance. Dealing with about 115 horsepower and about 77 pound-feet of torque. But this is not the full review of this bike. Stay tuned if you want to see that. This is the DM Commuter test, which means it's time to hop on the bike and get moving. For no other reason other than the sun is hot and my daughter is to be picked up from daycare in about an hour and a half, so we have no time to waste. Such is the life of a family man motorcycle reviewer. So let's get the first cold start on this bike. And listen to that. I hear injectors and I hear V-twin exhaust. Now this bike is Euro 5 Plus compliant, but I bet you could really wake it up with an aftermarket pipe. So, if you are new to the channel, this is the DM Commuter test. In this video, we're not trying to give a full comprehensive review of the bike, but I want to see what it would be like if you were taking this bike regularly, using it as a work commuter or school commuter, something like that, something where you're kind of having to ride in the daily grind. So in order to test that out, we're going to head over to the gas station here, fill it up with 91 octane, go out and do about 43 miles of mixed riding, some city, some 55, and some highway. We're going to get it back, fill it up, see what our sort of fuel economy numbers are. That person has just stopped right there to look at her phone. And then we'll wrap it up and talk about what this bike is like to ride here in the real world. But another reason that I booked this is we're going to be putting this Stelvio up against two other middleweight ADV motorcycles in a long distance kind of fishing trip, boys trip, camping trip type of experience. So we've got the F900 GSA from BMW and the good old Honda Africa Twin. I'm going to be heading out with two of my buddies. We're going to go up into the middle of the state and kind of experience life on two wheels with these things. All right, where can we fuel up where I don't have to stand in the sun? Oh, it's the new mail truck. Very nice. I guess even they need fuel, right? Now, I don't know 100% for sure that these bikes require premium, but I'm going to say that's a safe guess. So that's what we're going to put in here for today. Look at this cool key. Not the largest tank in the class, only 5.5 gallons, but depending on what sort of numbers we see here, that should allow us to get some decent mileage. All right, before we head out, let's reset our trip computer here, which we do. There's trip. Okay. That reset everything. Perfect. Average fuel. We are off. And we do have a number of ride modes here on the Stelvio. We've got road, tour, off-road, sport, and rain. Now those customize engine characteristics as well as traction control characteristics and maybe ABS as well. I think it's a few different things. Now that does not control quick shifter characteristics because this bike comes ready for a quick shifter, as they say, but I believe it's some sort of dealer extra or install or something like that. And unfortunately, this bike is bone stock. This is kind of a spring chicken. I think we only have something like 200 some miles on here. Let me see, what was the Odo? 356 at this point. So we are one of the first people here on this motorcycle, and this is about how you'd see it if you ordered it from your local Piaggio dealership. Other than that, temperature today, currently 82 degrees Fahrenheit already, so a little bit toasty here for Orange County, but we're going to be riding down to the Pacific Coast. It should cool down a little bit for us. And I'm going to be riding as though you were just heading into the office. You know, nice, easy morning ride. Not going to be pushing it too hard. We will have one spirited riding section where we open it up a little bit, but other than that, I just kind of want to see how this bike would be from a casual riding perspective. So we'll mostly be doing tour and road for our ride modes. Now, as I understand it, tour is just a little bit more calm than road. Road is kind of your middle ground sort of ride mode, and then sport, obviously, most aggressive, and off-road and rain, pretty self-explanatory. This bike does have ABS, and you can disable the rear when you're in off-road mode, but I believe the front stays on at all times. It is going to be kind of tough going between all three of our adventure bikes next week because the Africa Twin's a full automatic, the BMW will have a quick shifter, and then this has neither, so you're doing everything yourself. I know some of us are going to be trying to jam the shifter into gear on this one, and it's not going to be happening. But it's probably a little loud for you guys, so let me click over here and put up our adjustable height windscreen. Oh, just kidding, it's all the way up. All right. So you do have a power adjusted windscreen, which is nice. However, as you can maybe hear, it's at the highest position. It's kind of at that height where it's just hitting me in the top of my helmet's windshield, which means it's kind of loud, buffety air. And I'm sort of wishing I had put earplugs in for the highway portion. I'll be okay for today, but it's a little louder than I'd like. That being said, I am 5'10", 32-inch inseam, and about 165 pounds. Other than the windscreen location, though, and kind of height, which you could easily just put one of those laminar tips, probably be totally silent on here. But other than that, ergos seem pretty comfortable. I have a nice outreach to my arms. Seat is kind of a nice taper. I'll kind of maybe comment on ergo comfort a little bit more as we get closer to the end of our video. I assume you're turning despite not having a signal on. I was correct. That's the thing with riding around Southern California. You kind of just have to anticipate people's actions and how they're telegraphed to you. You can't necessarily just go off of what they're telling you they're going to do. We do have that shaft drive, which gives this bike a little bit more of a solid constitution from a shifting feel compared to a chain bike. And it's also got that kind of grabbier sort of acceleration experience than having a little bit of chain lash. We do have a slipper and assist clutch, which I was kind of surprised to read because when I first picked this bike up yesterday, I thought to myself, oh, it's a pretty heavy clutch. But it is slipper and assist, so kind of surprising to me. So that'll be another part where I'm kind of curious to see, after being on the bike for a while, does my wrist get a little tired at all, my hand. But it's a very satisfying thunk and chunk into each gear. It's kind of the opposite of, you know, your BMW style, where it's just kind of a light little into each gear. This is a clunk and a thunk every time you change your gear. Pretty cool. There is also a vibration and a character to the engine. I know I started the video sort of talking about character, but yeah, this is hopefully you can hear that, but I feel this engine working underneath me. It's definitely not a sewing machine. There is a little bit more delay from the accelerator than I would like. It's obviously a throttle by wire. We've got cruise control on here, but not all throttle by wire machines are built the same, and this seems to be one that is just a little bit more delay. It's very, very, very subtle, almost imperceptible, but just enough where you feel like you're kind of accelerating through a computer. I think we need to talk suspension. This bike has a little bit less suspension travel than some of its peers. We're dealing with about 6.5 inches front and rear, and so far the suspension seems firm to me. Now, I haven't really had a chance to adjust any of the adjustable preload or rebound damping. No compression damping on this one. I bet you if I took a little bit of rebound and a little bit of preload out, suspension would be a little bit more forgiving. I do know we're going to have some gear loaded up on the back of this though later next week, so part of me hesitates to do that because I'm probably going to want that weight back. But at least initially, I have to report that the suspension is a bit firm. But I'm also coming off an R1300 GSA that was very, very squishy and plushy, so maybe middle of the road suspension characteristics so far, at least on a daily riding perspective. Boy, it is grunty though. That is a strong engine. That's a lot of power for this kind of middleweight segment. About 540 pounds or so, wet and ready to ride, which again kind of places it middleweight-ish. I know some people are going to consider that heavy, some people are going to consider that light, but from a displacement and power segment, it's kind of at the very upper end of what would be considered middleweight. And the pricing kind of reflects that too. The one we're on, somewhere around 17,000 United States dollaronis as you're seeing it. You can pay some more for some luggage, you can pay some more for the quick shifter. Something that you do not have to pay more for, but is not offered yet here in the United States, is radar adaptive cruise control. And I would have to look for a specific fact check, but I think, from what I know, that is one of the most affordable ways to get radar adaptive cruise control on a motorcycle. However, it's still going through Department of Transportation approval right now. I have to imagine that they're dealing with other stuff than approving some Italian motorcycles adaptive cruise control. I wish they would get through to it because it would be nice to have, especially on this kind of 55-mile-an-hour type road trip that we're about to head out on, single lane, you know, dual lane, one each way. It's really nice to have adaptive cruise control. You kind of set it, and then you can stretch out, and the bike will slow or speed up depending on the traffic in front of you. That would give it a nice edge compared to the other two motorcycles we'll be reviewing it against. But either way, having cruise control at all, obviously a good thing. We'll be testing that out on the highway. Looks like we also have a USB-A port up there, so could probably just snake that through. Maybe if you had a phone mount right here, snake that through to there. The engine is so grunty that you do really get up to speed quick. You gotta kind of keep an eye on your speed, because between the power and how low it makes the power, and then how fun it is to listen to this engine, you find yourself getting up to triple digits or at least above posted speed limits quite quickly. So something to keep an eye on. I forgot to mention at the beginning, but we are running an 80/20 tire on here. I think these are Anarchy Wilds, maybe Michelin Anarchy Wilds. I'll have to take a look. Maybe I'll post here below what tire they are, but 80-20 tire, which means it's intended for 80% on-road, 20% off-road, which is interesting because a lot of the bikes that we see in this category are coming with more of a 90-10 tire. However, this bike, being shaft drive, being less suspension travel, and being the 1917 wheel setup, is less oriented toward going off-road. But yet we've got the spoked wheels and we have the 80-20 tires. So part of me almost thinks that Moto Guzzi chose to do a smaller wheel setup, but then a more aggressive tire in order to make this more nimble, but maybe a little bit louder and a little bit less grippy on the road, but still kind of capable of hanging off-road with some of those other machines. And I gotta say, I actually kind of agree with that take, because this bike does feel kind of nimble, and it'll be cool to get it in some of the twisty sections, because it's with the smaller wheels, you're going to have less gyroscopic effect. It's going to be happier to turn and dance a little bit compared to those bigger wheel adventure bikes. And let's be honest, most people are not pushing their tires even close to their limits. So the fact that these are 80-20 tires as opposed to the 90-10, I think we are going to more appreciate that 10% improvement in off-road capability, and we're not going to miss the 10% on-road that we're losing from this tire setup. Let's see, what else do we get from our screen here? I'm seeing a clock, outside temp, distance to empty, gear, speed, fuel, coolant temp, tack, and then an adjustable screen here. We got our windshield. Ooh, only looking at 32 miles per gallon so far. That's not fantastic. We got our traction control there, odo, trip, time, max speed, average speed. Okay. And then if you really hold the button, you can get into more of the advanced menus where you can customize things. Good time for a quick gear check. I am wearing my Daily Rider Revit build out, if you will. I got my Ortez jeans that are kind of riding jeans looking, sort of a dark wash, but with some armor and some reinforcement on there. We've got our off-track jacket and the boundless boots, both black, looking nice on any sort of bike, including this beautiful green Italian machine. I've got my dirt gloves to kind of keep a little bit of ADV look here. And then I've got my Arai Contour X helmet. Got the bright green highlighter, if you will, try to help people see me. And then I'm wearing my Headlights H-Move backpack, but I don't have the backpack portion on. I just have the main airbag portion. That allows me to have my water bladder and the airbag protection while making it a little more lightweight. Out here on a 3-lane highway like this, I obviously need to be checking for cars as I change lanes, but the Stelvio helps me with that. Right here we have blind spot monitoring on this bike. Again, something that we don't typically see until you get into pricey bikes like the $30,000 BMW R1300 I had. But this one doing it for us. So you can see back there when I was next to that Porsche, it was letting me know there's a car in my blind spot. Now obviously it's still good practice to turn ahead and look back and make sure there's nothing back there. You don't want to put all your faith in here, but it is nice to know that you're in a busier traffic situation, you're on the highway, you're looking around for cars or anything like that, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I better change lanes. There's that bright orange light that would at least alert your brain and tell you, hey, don't do it yet. I'm curious if I were to turn my blinker on when there's a car in my blind spot, if it would flash. So I'll try that here at some point. Now, if you live in a jurisdiction where it's legal to lane filter, or you simply choose to do it, Stelvio seems to be a nice width for it. Your widest point without bags is certainly going to be your mirrors and kind of your handlebars, but we can see here flowing in very nicely. One of the big benefits of riding here in Southern California, this is perfectly legal to do. And people get nicely out of the way so that we can enjoy beautiful views like this. Pacific Coast Highway, 10:54 on a Wednesday morning. Big surf rolling in. Those look like some fantastic rollers. Kids are enjoying it. Very nice. Along with that adaptive cruise control, the radar system in the front of the bike does give us, I believe, forward collision warning. I don't know if there's any active braking support. Again, I'll put it down here below. These these GM commuter tests are often kind of a first ride for me. So this is my first time really experiencing the motorcycle. So I don't necessarily have all my facts and figures straight in front of me like a full review. But I believe if we were to be coming up on a car stopped in front of us or whatever, it would beep at me and possibly help me brake as well, which, again, great little safety feature to have. Coming into Laguna Beach, the perfect opportunity to talk noise. Now, this motorcycle is a little louder than what I'm used to riding. It's not to say it would be loud compared to something like a big cruiser or something like that, but this V-twin does have a presence. The cool thing is it seems to get out of the way when you're just kind of putzing along. So right here, 3,000 RPM. If I get out of the wind, I do hear it, but again, it's kind of a cool sound, so I don't mind too much. I bet you will get stopped at some sort of light here and we can listen to the spike at idle. But for me, it's a nice balance, especially from an out-of-the-factory kind of sound, between being present without being overbearing. I don't like a super loud motorcycle, but I also don't like a super quiet motorcycle. I like to hear the engineering going on below me. So here we are coming away from a stop. A lot of injector noise. But yeah, very, very pleasant, very quintessential motorcycle sort of sound coming from this engine. I like it. And this is going to be a good test of the city ability on this bike. So if you plan on riding it in more of a heavy traffic sort of situation, lower speeds. Oh, again, there's that blind spot monitoring coming into effect. I had to look back to see that there was a Cybertruck. Look at how many Cybertrucks we've seen here just in this last few minutes. Again, that heavier clutch is going to get a little fatiguing in these stop and go scenarios. But that grunty power is going to make up for it a little bit, making it so you can really ride the bike down to a low speed without having to clutch in. Coming down to a stop. Again, 5'10", 32-inch inseam. I can flat foot just barely, and that's partially due to the shape of the seat and less so the height. It's a nicely tapered seat design, which means I can get my legs down when I need. But more importantly, it's very comfortable to just kind of tap toe down as we come to a stop, keep rolling. Again, I kind of like having a little bit of a louder sound as well for announcing my presence. I don't want to honk my horn, but sometimes you just want to give a little rev so that people know you're coming around the corner. Man, is that just a strong, strong engine pull. 3rd Street Hill. Very nice. Coming up to our twistier riding section here. Maybe you've got a fun series of off-ramps and on-ramps or twisty roads in your commute and you want to open your bike up a bit. Try to emulate that here. Click on through to sport mode. Let us open it up. Get a little shift light there. Oh my gosh. This bike is rowdy. The pegs are very high, so I'm not concerned at all about scraping. Yeah. And even if I had a passenger on here and some gear, I'd have no trouble. Accelerating hard up this hill. Yeah, the engine wakes up nicely. Listen to that. Oh, an Alfa Romeo Stelvio. I was hoping we would see one of those on this ride. Stelvio. Yeah, I like that power curve. I mean, this engine rewards being up there in the horsepower range. Oh, that's fun. as I expected, the throttle response is much snappier here in sport mode. So I've been in tour for most of the tests. Let's try road for a little while and we'll see if the throttle response is a little more acceptable there. Also, I will fully acknowledge that this bike is fairly low on mileage, so maybe there is some sort of just making sure that police officer doesn't have any interest in me. Maybe there is some sort of break-in that we are still in. I would hope that Moto Guzzi would not give out the bike without it being broken in, but you never know. So there is always that possibility. Coming into the end of the city portion of our DM Commuter test here, there are a few elements of the Stelvio that make it great around town, and a few that kind of make it a little tiring. First off, the tiring. The clutch pull. Like I said, it's despite being a slipper and assist clutch, it's still a heavier pull, and I believe I can bring it a little closer to my hand with an adjustment knob up there. That's something I should do static. That would be essentially entirely remedied by the quick shifter. And personally, if I'm spending 17 grand on this bike, I'm spending whatever else I need to in order to have that quick shifter installed. So I get why Moto Guzzi hasn't put that on here. They just wanted to get the bike into the fleet as quickly as possible. But I would highly recommend, oh, look at that. With the blind spot monitoring, you even get it on the screen here. That's actually really smart, because even if you don't take a look, you know, just looking right in front of you, you got the car in your blind spot. Anyway, that's cool. But I would get the quick shifter, and the quick shifter would make it so you don't have to worry about the clutch pull nearly as much. Your hand would get more of a break, and then when you do need to feather the clutch coming away from stops or anything, it's a little less fatigued. So there's that. And then, like I said, the suspension, just a little bit less give, a little bit less squish than some of the other ADV bikes. So it's certainly more comfortable than your standard street, naked, cruiser, anything like that, but it's just a little firmer, and like I said earlier, I could probably adjust the suspension a bit, have a little bit more give. But the gutsiness of this engine does make it a lot of fun and just very easy to squirt around town. You know, you get a little opening or something, and very, very concerned about stalling it. Very little concern, I should say, about stalling it, because there's just so much nice twist down low. This engine's got a ton of twist. And I love that for these lower speed kind of pull out and go sort of scenarios. And then the lower seat height. Again, being an adventure bike, some of these things are really tall, and this one, not quite so much. So I was able to get my feet down where need be, plant, stop, go, everything very easily. And it's not a super top heavy bike. I think between the V-twin engine and the little bit smaller fuel tank than some of the other ADVs, it's a nice bike to be on and to kind of maneuver around. So I think that would come into effect as well, doing a little bit of off-roading, being able to maneuver and handle the bike nicely. But now we are up in suburbia, doing these 55-mile-an-hour roads, again taking advantage of that blind spot monitoring, the raised windscreen, and the ergos. Now I will say the pegs are a tad bit high, just the littlest bit high. So I am feeling, again, at 32-inch inseam, just a little bit of extra bend in my knee compared to other bikes in this class. That it's not uncomfortable yet, but I think once we crest an hour, I'm going to be shaking my legs out a little bit. But speaking of that, standing up, here I am, full leg extension, and I've still got a slight bit of bend in my arms to reach the handlebars. So this is actually a pretty decent standing position. That being said, we've got rubber foot pegs on here. I don't know if they just pop out or if they need a screw. I'll have to investigate that. But they're a little narrow and they're rubber, so I don't feel super confident standing. Not only that, my knees are being slightly pushed out because of the narrow peg position and the tank. So I can stand on here decently comfortably, but I don't feel particularly confident if I were kind of off-roading this. I would have to get that rubber out of the way. Okay, so confirming, if you put your blinker on when there's a car in your blind spot, it does flash. So it's a very well executed blind spot monitoring system. In order to kind of enunciate and demonstrate the low down power and smoothness of this engine, I'm going to do a second gear start from the stoplight. Got a little bit of a downhill crest, but I'm just going to gently let the clutch out, and we're going to see. I mean, look at that. There's so much power down low. And then the engine's pretty smooth too. Here I am about coming up toward 4,000 RPM, 55 miles per hour. You do feel a little bit in the seat, but you don't really feel it too much in the bars until you kind of twist on it. But just cruising along, it settles down nicely. We'll see that more at highway speeds. We'll kind of talk. But I am a little bit suspicious that you all are going to have trouble hearing me when we're cruising at 70 miles per hour. So if the audio is pretty bad on the highway portion, I'll recap my thoughts with you afterward. Here we are, 70 miles per hour. And I don't know if it's the windshield or if it's just a truck. I think it's a truck. But it's actually, I'm getting a good bit of wind blocked from me right now. We're cruising about 4,500 RPM at 72. And again, we still have so much power under us. But you do feel the engine a little bit. Let's see how that is near the end of the highway section. Let's get our cruise set. Flip this over, hold it over to the side, and then press it to the side to set, up and down to adjust. Okay. So there we are, cruise control. You do have plastic handguards here in front, which are doing a nice job of keeping the wind off of my hands. I don't believe we have heated grips, but usually when you have these kind of wind blockers, it's not the end of the world. It's kind of funny that you've got a bike that comes with adaptive cruise control, but not heated grips as standard. I'm sure you can get them optional. Coming off the highway, it's a perfectly fine place to be. Despite there being a little bit of turbulent wind noise in front of me from this windshield, the wind effect is actually pretty low on my body, so gonna keep you from the colder air, keep you from that kind of get pushback effect from higher speed wind here. Now, I have no doubt that this motorcycle would continue up to very high speeds here on the highway. In fact, the trip computer says the maximum speed since before I got the bike yesterday was 130 miles per hour. I imagine it would get there quite quickly. Now, if you do want to see more on how the bike is for a highway trip, stay tuned for our full 3-bike compare after we put some big miles on these things. But yeah, I'd have no problem using this as a little highway bike. The blind spot monitoring is nice. As soon as we get radar adaptive cruise control, that'll be nice, but having cruise in general is totally fine for the highway. And yeah, no complaints. Really no complaints about the bike as a whole. Here we are coming into the end. Seat, still comfortable. Like I said, the only ergo effect that I kind of have a little bit of a complaint on is the high peg height with the low seat height. I've got kind of that squished leg syndrome going on just slightly. I think if you were a really tall rider, that might start to wear on you. But other than that, it's a nice setup. It really is. And the character and kind of the motor, that really does it for me. I'm enjoying that part. So let's get it back to the pump here and fill it up. According to the bike's readout, we are not getting fantastic mileage. 40 on the dash for a mid-weight adventure bike. Not superb, but let's top it off, see what our actual calculation is. Back and all fueled up, we ended up putting in a total of 0.963 gallons here into the tank of the Stelvio. So after traveling 42.9 miles divided by 0.963, okay, so a little bit more optimistic than the than the bike readout, but we will drop it down there. We'll give a slight round down to 44 miles per gallon here for the DM Commuter mixed riding fuel economy on the Moto Guzzi Stelvio. Now, like I said, that's not exactly a fantastic figure. In fact, we just tested the R1300 GSA with its automatic transmission, but also its aluminum side cases, got 49. So, you know, a little bit better, but hey, I would give up a few miles per gallon in order to get the character of this 90-degree V twin. And we do have a little bit more of an aggressive tire. Let me get that. We are running an Anarchy Adventure. Okay, an Anarchy Adventures on here. I think I said Anarchy Wilds, but it's apparently an 80/20 tire, these Anarchy Adventures. With that 5.5 gallon fuel tank times 44 miles per gallon is giving you a fair 240 miles of mixed riding here. If you're running highway speeds, that might actually even be a little bit better because we saw our fuel economy going up as we were riding at 70 miles per hour. Now you load it up with some gear, some passenger, whatever. I think getting that kind of 250 mile figure is achievable. You know, we'll see. We'll be testing the F900 GSA and the Africa Twin on this test as well here over the next few weeks, so we'll see how those do. But as a motorcycle, especially from a daily riding sort of perspective, I really like this bike. It's comfortable, it's got character and pizzazz, it's got tech that's actually helpful and useful, the safety features are neat, it looks cool without being overly aggressive or, you know, it's an attractive motorcycle. This is the type of bike that I would love to throw a leg over and ride every single day, despite it maybe not being quite as smooth, quite as efficient, quite as easy to ride as some of the other bikes we see. This is a bike that makes me enjoy riding, and I love that. So thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on this or any of the other bikes that we test here on the DM Commuter test, check the links below. If you want to see the full review, make sure you stay tuned, as well as our comparo test. And we will see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from DM Moto, and as always, ride on.